How's everybody doing today? Back again with another video for you guys. And today we're going to be doing my full review of the Motorola DROID Turbo. Now, I've been using this device for a while, and I think I finally got a handle on everything that I want to cover in my full review. So y'all know how it goes. When I cover everything I feel like I covered, then it's time to shoot. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Now, before I start talking about my usual stuff, I just want to take this time to talk about the case itself, the Ghost Trek case, or Ghost Tech case that I got via Amazon. So, right now, let's take this time to talk about that. Now, I've been using this case for a bit as well. It came a couple days after I got the device. So, all in all though, I must say, it seems like a really, really solid case. All my buttons are pressable. Everything works. I will say this though about the buttons. It does make it fairly hard to recognize which button I'm pushing, unless I'm actually pushing it. And it does require a little bit more force to push the actual buttons. But other than that, all in all, I would have to say that this is a solid case, and it fits quite perfectly onto the device and adds all around protection to the device with a built-in screen protector on it. And I can't really talk about the durability because I haven't really dropped this phone much with the case on, but I do think that it will stand up quite well to some drops. And you still have access to all of your ports. You just pull back the flaps, that's your charging port. Up top you got your headphone port, again you just pull back the flap. So you have access to all of your ports. Everything still works, all of my sensors still work, and I have maximum protection here. So overall, I would have to say that this is a solid case for my Motorola DROID Turbo. Now let's talk about the price of this case. Now I got this via Amazon for $10. And guys, I don't know what to say other than that. I mean, to get a case of this quality for $10, that's just a solid deal. There's nothing else I could say. And don't forget, all links to where to purchase this case, as well as the phone, will be down in the video description. So I just want to get that out of the way real quick. Solid case here from Ghost Trek, or Ghost Tech. Now, let's move on to the device. Now, the first thing we usually talk about when we get into these reviews is the build quality. Now, overall, I must say, I'm not going to take it out the case because it does take a little bit of time. Overall, I must say, the build quality on this device is quite solid indeed. It has a very nice matted material on it, like a ballistic nylon material, which makes it quite grippy. And overall, it feels very solid in your hand, and it has a nice weight to it. So overall, there's no rattling or creaking, and the build quality on this device is quite solid indeed. Now, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the display of this device. Now, this device up front, dead center here, has a 5.2 inch quad HD display. And that's a 2560 by 1440p display, as I can show you guys right there. And it has a screen density of 564, which that just means that the pixels on the screen are really tightly packed, so it just makes the screen look that much better. And overall, guys, I must say, in terms of display, this display is quite good. Now, it gets quite bright outdoors as well. No issues using it outdoors, and you can see It actually is really bright. Let me go ahead and turn it down because it kind of hurt my eyes. Let me turn it back down to where it was. Boom. So display wise, I have no issues with the display, and the display is actually quite good. Next, let's talk about some more of the hardware and software in this guy. Now, hardware wise, we're running a Snapdragon 808 processor. No, not 808, 805 processor. Sorry guys, this is actually quite closely spec'd to my Motorola Moto X Pure Edition. So if I mess up some of the specs and stuff between both phones, I'll correct it, or I'll make a comment down below to correct it. But this is running a Snapdragon 805 processor, and I believe that it is clocked at, hold on, I gotta add here guys, sorry about that. I believe it's clocked at, yes, 2.65 gigahertz, and we have 3 gigs of RAM, and we have an Adreno 420 GPU. That's the graphics processor. And I already talked about the display. We have 3 gigs of RAM. We have one front-facing speaker right here, right across the top here. We have a 2.1 megapixel camera. We got all of your light and proximity sensors. Now, there's no notification LED on this, but it is what it is. We have touch capacitive buttons along the bottom here that do light up, so it's not on-screen buttons. And down at the bottom we have a micro USB charging port. Up at the top, as I've stated earlier, we got a 3.5mm headphone jack. We have Bluetooth 4.0 in this device. And in terms of internal storage, we have 32 gigs of internal storage with no micro SD card expansion. This does come with one other storage option, and that's the red option, which comes with 64 gigs of storage. And out of that 64 gigs of storage, I believe I have 25 gigs usable right there, about 24.13. And then out of that, I've used about 5 or 6 gigs, so I have about 14.31 gigs available. Y'all already know I don't take up a lot of space, so a device with no expandable storage, it doesn't really hurt me, you know. But that's pretty much it for the hardware. Hold on the back here, we have a 21 megapixel camera with a ring LED flash. And then we have our Motorola dimple. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the hardware. Now, in terms of software, we are running a pretty stock version of Android 5.0 Marshmallow. And I must say, guys, that this is pretty much in Moto X fashion, or Motorola fashion. So it's a very, very stock experience with little to no changes to Android whatsoever. And let me just show y'all. We are running Android 5.1, which is Marshmallow. So it's a little bit of a bummer that this didn't get an upgrade to 6.0 Marshmallow, but it is what it is. Keep in mind, this was originally a Verizon device, but it is unlocked, and I am using it on T-Mobile, as you can see right there. See the T-Mobile right there. And also, I do get 4G LTE on this device, but in my office here, I get really bad reception. So right now, you can see it's showing 3G. But it does get 4G LTE, and it does get HSPA Plus, and it pretty much has all of the bands to it, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. Alright, so that pretty much does it for software and hardware, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys are some of the glitches, stutters, and crashes that I've had with this device. Now, overall, I must say this has been a very, very smooth device, and I haven't really had any issues whatsoever. No glitches, no stutters, no crashes. Now, that makes me really happy, because in the devices that I've reviewed, I usually have at least a glitch or a stutter. Not so much crashes these days, because these devices are getting quite good. But with this particular device, I've had no issues whatsoever. No glitches, no stutters, no crashes. So this has been a really, really smooth device, and again, I've had no issues. Now, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the Wi-Fi on this device. Now, this device has 802.11, BGNN, and AC Wi-Fi. So what does that mean? That means that it has support for the 2.4 gigahertz band Wi-Fi and the 5 gigahertz band Wi-Fi. Now, let me just show y'all real quickly, because usually I do a screenshot of it and talk about it with you guys, but I did a lot of testing here, so I just figured I'd just pull up the app. Now, as I've said, in terms of data, I'm using it on T-Mobile, and I've gotten pretty good data speeds right here, as you can see. And this is running this test on 4G LTE, 3G, HSPA, HSPA Plus, all that good stuff. And then right here, this is running with the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi band. And then if I scroll further down, these bunch here is running with the 5 gigahertz band. Now, it's solid Wi-Fi overall, but this is where this phone really shows its age. And for those of you who didn't know, this phone is probably about 2 years old. It came out in 2014. This phone's about 2 years old. And although the Wi-Fi performance is solid, I would have preferred to see some higher scores, but it is what it is, because I had no issues with the Wi-Fi. But again, this is where this device shows its age, because you can see the scores for Wi-Fi, whether it be 2.4 gigahertz band or 5 gigahertz band. They're good, but they're not as good as they should have been. And y'all know, if y'all check out the Wi-Fi portions of my other phone reviews, I usually get some phenomenal scores, whether it be on 2.4 gigahertz band or 5 gigahertz band. But it is what it is, because I had no issues with the Wi-Fi at all. So, some pretty solid Wi-Fi here. Now, as we always do, I'm going to go ahead and load up a YouTube video for you guys. This way y'all can see real time how it loads up, and I'll let it play a couple seconds. And now let me just find one of my videos so we don't have any copyright issues. Alright, let's check this out. Alright, how's everybody doing today? As promised, I told you guys I'd get some daytime video samples for you. So, out with my friends at the park right now. This just looks beautiful. I had to bust out the camera and start filming. So this is 1080p at 60 frames a second, and we're just going to go ahead and scan around the scene for you guys. It just looks beautiful. Just another reminder. Stuff right there, boy. Yes, sir. Ooh, look at that water. Water dirty, boy. Water dirty. Ain't swimming in there. Alright, so that had... Alright, so as you guys saw right there, the Wi-Fi on this guy is actually pretty good. And now this does play back 4K content, but that particular video that I clicked on was 1080p at 60 frames a second, and you see it played back with no issues. Alright, so now let's keep it moving. Now, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys are the bands supported on this guy. And, I like to cover all the bands because this way you guys know if your carrier supports these bands, then you should be fully covered when it comes to overall data speeds and performance when you're not on Wi-Fi. So in terms of bands, this guy has band 2. Now it has all of the GSM, HSPA, and HSPA plus bands, but if you want LTE, you got to make sure that your carrier supports these bands here. And being as this is a Verizon device, if you're on Verizon, this should work no problem. But as I've said, this is unlocked. I'm using it on T-Mobile, as y'all seen, and so it should work on Verizon no problem. But if you don't have Verizon, or you have AT&T or T-Mobile or any of the other carriers, I don't believe this will work on Sprint. But if you have the other GSM carriers or one of the MVNOs, it should work no problem as long as your carrier supports these bands that I'm about to run off for you guys. So in terms of LTE, it has band 2, 1900, band 3, 1800, band 4, 1700 and 2100, band 7, 2600, band 13, 700, and that's pretty much it, guys. So as long as your carrier supports those bands, you shouldn't have any issues. And as I've said, I've had no issues with it on T-Mobile. All I had to do was put in the T-Mobile APNs and then click on it and then reset my device, and I had no issues. Alright, so up next, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the Bluetooth in this device. And now this device has Bluetooth version 4.0, so it's not the latest, but all in all, I would say that the Bluetooth on this device is actually really, really good. Had no issues with the Bluetooth whatsoever, and y'all already know I have a ton of headphones, I have a few speakers, I have a ton of Bluetooth enabled devices, because you know I don't like them cables, so it's like hashtag no cables, you know what I'm saying? So, but in terms of Bluetooth, didn't have any issues with the Bluetooth on this guy, whether it be hooking up to Bluetooth headphones, speakers, or pairing with other Bluetooth enabled devices, had no issues. So, the Bluetooth is solid. Now, up next, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the GPS in this guy. Now, GPS wise, I would say that the GPS in here is really, really good. Had no issues with the GPS, had no issues with turn-by-turn navigation, and y'all know this is a really important segment for me because I'm not too directional savvy, so I must have a device with some solid GPS performance and turn-by-turn navigation, and I had no issues with this device, no issues whatsoever. And the Bluetooth actually locked on within seconds, and you can see for this particular test it was accurate down to 10 feet, and I must say I had no issues with the Bluetooth whatsoever. So the Bluetooth on here is solid. Now up next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the overall call quality and speaker quality on this device. Now when it comes to call quality, I must say the call quality on this is pretty good. I had no issues with call quality. All my callers said they could hear me. I was crisp and clear. Had no issues. That being said, when it came to speaker calls, I did wish that the speaker on this guy, at least when it comes to calls, got a little bit louder. Now it was crisp and it was clear, but I do wish that it got a little bit louder when I was on speakerphone calls. But it is what it is. Now, moving on, let's talk about the cameras in this guy. And first, we're going to go over the camera interface, and then we're going to look at some samples. All video samples will be available in the video samples playlist. Y'all check out that playlist if you want to see 1080p samples, slow-mo samples, 4K samples, all of that good stuff. Front-facing camera samples, all of that good stuff. But in terms of the camera interface, Motorola similar to what it does nowadays, has made this a really simple camera interface. You have your HDR, you got your flash, you got your tap to focus, which you could turn on or off, and that gives you the ability to pick where you want to focus on the screen and also control the exposure. Alright, and then you just would tap the screen to take a picture. Wow, that's it. So it's actually really simple here. Now in terms of video, you could do 1080p video, you could do 720p slow-mo, and you could shoot in Ultra HD or UHD 4K. But with 4K, keep in mind you are limited because of the storage in this device. So I believe you can get only about 10 minutes of footage at a time, and those 4K samples are actually, they can get pretty big depending on how long the video is. So, but just keep in mind you can shoot up to 10 minutes at a time in between 4K video samples, and yeah, which is a bummer. I would really wish they took off limitations on that, but it is what it is. So, also, you have right here, you can change the camera resolution. So if you want to shoot in widescreen, which is my favorite to shoot in because it makes it look that much more cinematic, you have to bump it down to 15.5 megapixels so you could get the 16:9 widescreen. If you want to use all 21 megapixels, you got to use the 4:3 aspect ratio, which makes it look a little bit more cropped or boxy, but it is what it is. Just wanted to point that out so you guys know. And pretty standard, you have your timer here, and that's pretty much it. Now, let's flip to the front. Now, how you doing, guys? Now, in terms of the front-facing camera, you can only really record in HD, I believe it's 720p, and you don't have slow-mo. You still have the focus, so you could select where you want to focus on. You can't control the exposure, but it is what it is. Now, that being said, if you want to take advantage of the full 2 megapixels of the front-facing camera, you're going to have to shoot in that widescreen format. If you want to get a more cropped picture, you're going to have to bump it down to 1.6 megapixels and have that 4:3 aspect ratio. Other than that, you do have your timer and stuff, and it's pretty straightforward. No front-facing flash on this one. But that pretty much covers the cameras of this guy. So you got a 2 megapixel on the front, and you got a 21 megapixel on the back. And so now, let's look at some camera samples. Now, this is what I just took, and all in all, I would have to say the cameras on this guy are really solid. Now, this is low light. What can I say? I turned into a bit of a foodie. If I have a beautiful dish, I will take a picture of it. Excuse me, guys. But the cameras on this guy take some really good images. And you know what? If you want to see all of the images that I've taken with this particular phone camera, please follow me on Google+. I will be sharing out all these images on Google+. But all in all, I would have to say that the cameras on this guy are really good. I had no issues with the cameras. And you know what's nice is that this was a moving photo, and you can see I had to pinch in really far, but I still have all the details in the photo. Like, nothing is like grainy. I can see it. And let's say I wanted to call this particular wholesale, I can easily make out the numbers and everything to call. I can make out the name on the sign. And this was actually taken from pretty far away, and I was moving as well, and I was able to pretty much snap a solid picture of that. Anyways, that does it for the camera. As I said, the cameras on this are actually pretty solid in my opinion. But follow me on Google+ if you want to see all of the camera samples and photos. Next, let's talk about the gaming on this guy. Now, I'm not going to go through the gaming, but I will talk about the games that I've tested. So I've tested CSR Racing Classic, Asphalt 8, and Fruit Ninja. Now, this has the Adreno 420 GPU in it, and I must say it could pretty much handle any game that you throw at it with ease. Now, if you checked out my last video, that one was pretty similar. That was the Note Edge, and it also had the Snapdragon 805 in it, and it pretty much handled those games with ease. And this is no exceptions. It handles any game you throw at it with ease. That being said, I don't feel the need to demo the games because I had no issues with them, and this guy has been game tested up and down. So if you want to find a particular games review put on this phone, maybe I'll provide a link in the description so you guys can check that out. I am subscribed to a lot of YouTubers that really did test this in detail, so maybe I'll provide that link down below. But in terms of games and GPU performance, it was really solid, and I had no issues. Now, let's move on to the benchmarks, which is one of my favorite parts of these videos. Now, in terms of benchmarks, I say that this performed very well. Better than what I was expecting, I must say. So right here, for the 3D Mark Ice Storm Unlimited, you can see it scored a 19,345, which is pretty good. That's still right up there with the Moto XP edition. And right here in Antutu, it scored a 81,343, which is also pretty good, besting out some of my other devices, but it's solid performance here. And you can see in Quadrant, it blasted everything on the Quadrant, scoring a 25,321. And now this is in Vallejo. This is the Vallejo metal test, and you can see it scored pretty much upper mid-range of the pack with a this is the metal test. It scored at 1844, and that's pretty good for a 2-year-old device. That's pretty good indeed. And now here's where again it shows its age. This is the multi-core test, and you know this is getting up there. It's 2 years old, but it still performs really well. But it scored in the lower section of the pack this time with a 1631, but it is what it is. Right here, because you know, now I've really found the need to point this out, but this does have more available RAM than my Moto XP edition, because it has the 2.72 gigs available, whereas the Moto XP edition has about 2.5 gigs. And I find that that's really funny, because you'd think that the newer device would have more available RAM out of the box, even though they both have 3 gigs of RAM. So I just had to point that out. Now in Geekbench 3, it scored a 1049 for the single core and a 3100 for the multi-core, and that's actually really solid. That's still up there with some of today's flagship devices, and that's pretty good for a 2-year-old device, as I said. Now this is a new benchmark. This is the Disco Mark benchmark, and this just tests the multitasking ability. So what I did is I just loaded up all of the apps that I use on a daily basis, and this just cycles through them and comes out with an average and a total speed time. So it cycles through them an average of 5 times, and you can see it took about 25, a little bit over 25 seconds to get through all of these apps. And I use a ton of apps on a daily basis, so that was actually really